Hi, this is Hauntflix Recaps. Today I'm breaking down a suspense series titled Billionaires Bunker. There will be spoilers, so be careful. The story begins in Spain, where we meet our main character, Max, as he explains how he first fell in love with and when they were children. As kids, they were inseparable, always by each other's side, and Max shares that and stood with him through all his early life moments. When they became teenagers, they found the courage to confess their relationship to their families. Life seemed perfect until one night when Max was driving under the influence with Anne, and they were involved in a devastating crash. Anne lost her life, while 19-year-old Max was sentenced to prison for involuntary manslaughter. Being the son of a billionaire made him an instant target behind bars, and other inmates quickly began harassing him. At first, he managed to buy protection using cash his grandmother had secretly hidden inside books she sent him by bribing prison staff. But eventually, the bribe stopped working, and Max continued to suffer abuse and violent beatings. One day, the inmates shoved him into an industrial washing machine and left him trapped inside for an entire hour. When he finally crawled out, Max believed he wouldn't survive, yet somehow he did. In that moment, he understood that nothing worse could possibly happen to him. So, after pulling himself together, he mocked his own misery, which surprisingly made the other prisoners applaud him. From then on, Max trained hard, built his strength, and eventually became the strongest fighter in the prison, earning everyone's respect. In the present timeline, Max has found a strange sense of peace in prison, until one day he's told he's being released early for good behavior. After walking free, his father, Rafa, is there to pick him up. But Max feels nothing but resentment toward him and refuses to leave with him. Rafa explains that he personally arranged Max's early release and reveals that World War II is on the verge of starting. He says he has secured a hidden luxury bunker for the family and tells Max that his mother and grandmother are already inside. Even with that information, Max still refuses to go. However, when Rafa adds that Anne's family will also be there, Max finally agrees. After all, he has become used to being confined with people who despise him. On their way, Max and Rafa see crowds in the streets overwhelmed with panic, dragging suitcases as they rush around. Rafa explains that the bunker lies beneath a lake and took 7 years to complete. Soon, father and son board a helicopter and reach the location, where they descend 275 meters underground in an elevator. At the entrance, security confiscates their belongings and phones to prevent anyone from tracing the bunker's location, even though they're almost fully secured already. They finally step inside and are stunned by the bunker's massive scale and luxurious design. The underground shelter covers 20,000 square meters, featuring leisure spaces for adults and play areas for kids. They are provided with turquoise leather suits designed to shield them from radiation, while the staff members wear orange versions. These suits track radiation exposure and air conditions, and everyone must also wear a bracelet that monitors their vital signs. Each room includes an AI assistant named Roxanne, ready to help and even adjust the digital window scenery. Max happily reunites with his mother, Frida, and his grandmother, Victoria, who is battling cancer. The family feels emotional joy after being together again following so much time apart. Soon, Max notices Anne's family standing nearby. Among them are her father, Gummo, his new wife Mimi, and his daughter Asia. Asia and Gummo clearly resent Max, still holding him responsible for Anne's death. Max tries to approach them peacefully, but they reject him and respond with harsh words. It becomes clear that Asia blames Max not only for her sister's death, but also for her mother's, who passed away soon after and because she couldn't bear the grief. Despite the tension, both families share a table, and Asia bluntly asks Max how it felt to run from the crash and leave Anne behind. The question unsettles Max, and before Asia continues, others step in and urge her to calm down. During dinner, the bunker's creator, Minerva, arrives and welcomes everyone while updating them on the global crisis. She announces that NATO is attacking Russia following its invasion of Norway, and conflicts are escalating in other parts of the world as well. She demands complete cooperation from all residents and firmly states that she is the authority in the bunker, and her rules must be followed. Back in his room, Gummo is furious about Max being there and struggles to control his anger. Mimi attempts to soothe him, but he suddenly confesses that he never loved or cared for her. He admits their affair, while he was still married, was nothing more than entertainment. He says he only married Mimi because he was overwhelmed with grief after losing his wife and daughter. Mimi is devastated and begins to cry, but Gummo remains cold and indifferent. Meanwhile, Max tries once more to speak with Asia, but she greets him with hostility and insults again. He hands her Anne's phone, which he took from the crash scene before leaving. He tells her that Anne meant more to him than anything else in the world and asks Asia to let go of her hatred. Later, Asia retreats to her room and watches touching videos of her sister with Max, bringing a bittersweet smile to her face. She remarks how sweet he looked before he caused her sister's death. Elsewhere, Rafa and Gummo sit at the bar drinking, where Rafa encourages him to consider forgiving his son. Suddenly, a violent tremor shakes the bunker. The lights cut out, and the structure begins to shudder. Fear spreads rapidly among the residents. An announcement instructs everyone to move to the bunker's safest area, known as the Dome. In panic, Asia desperately looks for her father in the chaos. She eventually sees Rafa and Max helping him. They rush into an elevator together, but it suddenly stops working mid-descent, terrifying them. Thankfully, the emergency brakes engage, and they manage to reach the dome safely. Inside, multiple screens display news footage of the apocalypse sweeping across the globe. Entire cities collapse, flames consume the streets, and countless people lose their lives. Minerva informs them that a nuclear explosion has occurred only miles away from the bunker, but assures them they remain protected. Then another powerful blast hits, shutting off the lights and cutting the television feeds. No, not the Kardashians. In the darkness, Rafa makes a shocking confession to both families, admitting that he ordered Max to run away the night of the crash. He explains that Max was intoxicated and high, so he knew his son would take the blame and told him to escape. During the court case, Max was close to being cleared of charges, but Rafa changed his decision at the last moment. Wanting to correct his mistake, he testified against his own son and ensured Max went to prison, which explains Max's bitterness toward him. Hearing this, Victoria explodes in anger and scolds Rafa for sending her grandson behind bars. She also criticizes her daughter Frida for marrying a man she sees as weak. Frida then confronts her mother about her controlling nature, saying it pushed her into seeking affection from Rafa. She reveals that she never truly loved Rafa and married him only because her toxic mother failed to give her the love she needed. Victoria is deeply shaken by this truth, and Rafa is heartbroken to realize his wife never loved him. It almost feels like wealth has stripped them all of their humanity. Their argument is cut short when Minerva announces that 2 staff members are preparing to go up to the surface with cameras to fix the antennas. The bunker's residents watch a live stream as the 2 workers in protective suits step outside and are horrified to see lifeless bodies scattered across burning streets. Suddenly, one of the workers' gloves gets stuck to a metal railing and the other struggles to pull it free. During the struggle, the glove rips open, exposing his skin, and he is hit with radiation, screaming in agony. At that exact moment, the camera feed cuts out, leaving the guests anxious about the fate of those who went outside. Despite their fear, Minerva stays composed, assuring everyone she will update them soon before leaving the dome. She heads to the control room, where she excitedly praises her team for convincing the billionaires that their fake scenario was real. In a shocking reveal, we discover there is no apocalypse at all, and Minerva's crew has staged everything to trick the wealthy guests into believing nuclear war has begun. In truth, life outside continues as normal. Episode 2. A flashback shows that Minerva and her team had been planning this elaborate con for years, patiently waiting for the right political climate. Once global tensions intensified, they contacted their billionaire clients and created a convincing setup, including crowds running through the streets carrying suitcases. Why suitcases though? That detail still feels strange to me. All the news reports about World War III were completely fabricated, and even the supposed earthquake that shook the bunker was staged. It becomes clear that Minerva and her brother Zero are the masterminds behind the operation. They even recruited a movie director to help design the fake end-of-the-world scenes. The massive stone that crashed through the walls, the dust clouds, the artificial smoke, and even the elevator malfunction were carefully crafted to psychologically control the guests so they wouldn't doubt what they were seeing. Back in the dome, fear continues to grow among the residents. Max tries to reassure his mother and grandmother. He reminds them that humanity survived disasters like Hiroshima and Chernobyl, so they can endure this too. Asia overhears him, and his hopeful words bring a faint smile to her face. Later, Asia goes to the restroom and starts watching videos of Max on N's phone when she suddenly hears a strange sound from the next stall. To her horror, she discovers a woman who has attempted to hang herself and is barely alive. Asia quickly shouts for assistance. Using her medical training as a student, she desperately tries to keep the woman alive. Soon, the bunker's doctor, Julia, arrives, and together they successfully revive her. But instead of gratitude, the woman expresses frustration that Asia saved her life. Elsewhere, Minerva returns to the dome and informs everyone that it is safe to go back to their rooms. Later, Julia approaches Minerva nervously, and it's revealed that the two are romantically involved. Julia worries about the guest's mental state, but Minerva dismisses her concerns, insisting that people adapt to any situation. Afterward, the team prepares special makeup to make the injured worker appear as though his skin has been burned by radiation. The scene shifts to Rafa and Frida discussing her earlier confession. Rafa is devastated by her words. Frida apologizes but then firmly asks for a divorce, admitting she does not love him. She shocks him further by confessing she has fallen for her yoga instructor. Rafa struggles to process this betrayal. But Frida insists her decision is final and leaves to sleep in a separate room and continue her yoga routine. Later, a broken Rafa goes to the dining area asking for extra food, but the staff refuse, explaining that supplies are strictly rationed. Unwilling to accept this, Rafa grabs food and begins eating anyway. Minerva orders a guard named Yako to handle the situation. Yako tells Rafa to stop and return the food, and when he refuses, the guard shocks him with a taser. Max witnesses this and immediately steps in to defend his father, engaging Yako in a fight. Thanks to his prison training, Max quickly overpowers the guard and seizes the taser, but more guards soon arrive. Max prepares to fight them all, but Minerva instructs Yako through her earpiece to stand down and let Max go. Meanwhile, Gummo and Mimi manage to reconcile. Gummo recalls the intense passion they shared during their secret affair before marriage, though it faded afterward. Mimi suggests they can revive that excitement by divorcing and continuing as secret lovers. Gummo finds the idea thrilling, and the two end up sleeping together. At the same time, Asia browses her sister's phone again and discovers an intimate video Max once sent to Anne. Embarrassed and unsettled, she quickly turns it off. Later, a guard approaches Mimi to ask her blood type, which is AB negative. She is taken along with Victoria and several other women. They are told that the man exposed to radiation has worsened and urgently needs a transfusion. Mimi volunteers to donate blood. While donating, she notices Julia performing what appears to be surgery on the injured man. Seeing his horrifying condition deeply shakes Mimi and nearly causes her to panic. After returning, Mimi and the others describe the man's burned skin and fragile state to the rest of the guests. This spreads even more fear among them, exactly as the scammers intended. However, the fake performance takes a toll on Julia, who begins suffering panic attacks. Minerva rushes to comfort her with a kiss, but Julia insists she became a doctor to heal people, not deceive them. She feels guilty about the suffering around her and regrets joining the scheme. Julia wants to leave and promises to stay silent about the truth, but Minerva knows she would likely confess if questioned by authorities. From the control room, Zero watches everything, growing furious. When Minerva refuses to release Julia, Julia threatens to reveal the truth to the guests, escalating the argument. Zero interrupts, offering pills to calm her anxiety. She angrily knocks them away, reminding him that she is the doctor, not him. In a shocking moment, Zero suddenly pushes Julia off the railing, killing her instantly as Minerva screams in horror. Episode 3. The story flashes back to Minerva explaining Gummo's background to her team. She describes how he was born into immense wealth. At just 20 years old, he inherited and expanded his empire, becoming director of 64 companies and a highly influential figure. Even losing 1% of his fortune would go unnoticed by him. Yet if that 1% were turned into cash, it would fill 4 large trucks. 4 trucks? That's like saying he's got a Hemi under the hood, go buy some beers, man. This shows just how enormous his wealth truly is. Minerva then tells her team that she despises the ultra-rich and believes the American dream is a lie. Realizing she couldn't defeat capitalism alone, she chose to infiltrate it and target billionaires instead. In the present, her staff discover Julia's body and are horrified. They demand answers. Zero claims that CCTV footage shows Julia suffered a panic attack and jumped on her own. The team doubts him and asks to see the recording. He presents edited footage showing Julia leaping by herself. Though the video is fake, the team believes it and accepts the explanation. Later, during a meal, Minerva informs the guests that the radiation victim has died and that Dr. Julia allegedly took her own life. She announces stricter rationing and demands everyone follow the rules more carefully. She also publicly reprimands Rafa for stealing food and orders Max to return the taser within 10 minutes. In Gummo's room, he and Mimi are intimate, unaware they are being watched through surveillance cameras. Minerva's team has been constantly monitoring everyone, feeding the footage into their AI system, Roxanne. So that's how he performs the downward dog. In another flashback, the team asks Minerva how the billionaires can vanish without raising suspicion. She explains they will record fake goodbye messages claiming they are going on vacation. Zero's AI, Roxanne, developed over 11 years, can perfectly mimic a person's voice and behavior. If anyone calls them, Roxanne will answer and convincingly pretend to be that individual. Back in the present, Gummo receives urgent messages from his business partner, Oswaldo. Roxanne replies on his behalf, saying he is vacationing in the Philippines and unavailable. Elsewhere, Frida talks with Victoria, who confesses she has developed feelings for Mimi and wants to pursue her. Frida is disgusted, pointing out Mimi is younger and married to a man. She tells her mother to focus on her cancer instead of chasing someone so young, but Victoria insists she simply wants enjoyment. Meanwhile, Max shoots hoops alone on the basketball court. Minerva watches him through cameras, angry that he still hasn't returned the taser. She sends Yako to retrieve it. Haunted by memories of Julia, Minerva pulls Zero aside for a conversation. Zero apologizes, claiming he didn't intend to push Julia and that it was an accident. He assures her he is back on his medication and mentally stable. He even offers to step away from the project if she wants. But Minerva refuses. Soon, Yako approaches Max during his game and demands the taser back. Max refuses and instead challenges him to a fight. Minerva tries to stop Yako through her earpiece, but the furious guard ignores her and attacks Max. They engage in a brutal fight, injuring each other badly, and in the end, Max eventually overpowers Yako and lands a powerful punch that knocks him out, sending his earpiece flying to the floor. Right then, Asia arrives and freezes in shock at the sight of a blood-covered Max standing above Yako's unconscious body. Episode 4. Soon after, several staff members rush in and carry Yako to the infirmary while Asia turns to Max and demands to know what happened. Max is shaken by what he has done and fears he might have killed the guard. Asia checks the cut on his head and tells him he will need stitches. She also realizes his shoulder is dislocated and carefully pops it back into place. Meanwhile, Minerva and her team begin to panic as Yako's condition rapidly declines, unsure what to do without Julia, their only doctor. Someone suggests taking him to a real hospital or calling in outside medical help. But Minerva refuses to risk exposing their operation, so with no other solution, she seeks Asia's assistance. Even though Asia has not yet finished medical school, she agrees to help. After examining Yako, Asia notices his pulse weakening and his breathing becoming unstable, causing his blood oxygen levels to drop dangerously low. She quickly gives him an injection. Moments later, Yako regains consciousness, and everyone breathes in relief. At the same time, Oswaldo sends a video message to Gummo, urgently asking him to call back because he has life-changing news. This puts the scammers in a tight spot, realizing Oswaldo won't stop reaching out. Later, the scene shifts to a group therapy session among the guests, where Rafa vents about his wife leaving him. He admits that these days, Roxanne is the only one he talks to and considers his only friend. Hearing this, Gummo comforts him, saying he is not alone and that he has him as a friend. He also reveals to the group that he admires Rafa because when Max was close to being cleared of his charges, it was Gummo who encouraged Rafa to testify against his own son. Rafa ultimately followed his advice and sent Max to prison, something Gummo says he will always appreciate. Later, the two men relax at the spa, where Gummo encourages Rafa to move on from Frida and even offers to introduce him to someone new. They strike up a conversation with a female staff member and plan to meet her later for drinks. Elsewhere, Victoria approaches Mimi in an attempt to get closer to her, which Frida notices and finds unsettling. Victoria begins criticizing Gummo, claiming he repeatedly cheated on his previous wife and caused her immense pain. She then compliments Mimi for supposedly transforming him into a faithful and honest husband, which is clearly far from the truth. At that moment, one of the guests picks up a signal from a civilian pilot searching for a place to land. They try to respond, but the connection is weak, and soon they hear what sounds like a plane crashing. This sends everyone into panic. Unbeknownst to them, it is yet another staged event orchestrated by Minerva's team to intensify their fear. Meanwhile, Asia is stitching Max's wounds, and he looks at her with tenderness. His gaze makes it hard for her to focus, revealing that she has begun developing feelings for him. Overwhelmed by emotion, she suddenly runs off, leaving Max confused. At the same time, Oswaldo messages again, saying he plans to travel to the Philippines to meet Gummo in person. This news terrifies Minerva and her team. If Oswaldo contacts the Philippine embassy, he will discover that Gummo never arrived there. And if he checks with the Spanish embassy, he will learn that Gummo never left Spain at all. With no alternative, they decide to activate the AI version of Gummo to handle communication, even though it is not fully prepared. Minerva and Zero take the risk and initiate a video call with Oswaldo using the AI replica. Oswaldo reveals they have been offered a company that Gummo has wanted to acquire for over 20 years. The AI Gummo reacts with excitement, prompting Oswaldo to ask him to return for just one day to meet the owner, who insists on dealing with him directly. Zero fakes technical issues to briefly pause the call so they can gather more details about the company. Later, the AI Gummo explains that he and Mimi are facing marital problems and that he would rather stay on vacation than return. Oswaldo understands but says he will meet the owner himself and only needs Gummo's approval for a single day to sign the paperwork. Unexpectedly, the AI Gummo becomes emotional and says he no longer wants to buy the company but instead plans to sell it and donate the profits to children in developing countries. This alarms Oswaldo, who insists he will manage everything and that Gummo doesn't need to come back. However, he adds that the deal cannot proceed unless BJ3 is included. Unfortunately, Roxanne has no data on what BJ3 refers to. Despite monitoring Gummo constantly inside the bunker, he never once mentioned it. The AI Gummo is unable to respond. So, the team quickly pretends the connection failed and ends the call. They realize they must uncover what BJ3 means before Oswaldo contacts them again. Elsewhere, Max confronts Asia and asks why she suddenly ran away while treating him. To his shock, she calls him a monster and says she cannot stand looking at him because he destroyed her family. But it is obvious she is masking her true feelings, battling the urge to kiss him. Max is deeply hurt by her words, and Asia walks away in tears as the episode comes to an end.